Hello, great to have your company for another edition of Country Life. I'm Duncan Smith.
No mai whakarongo mai ki te Altai whenua. Welcome to the program. Ko Sally Rounder ho.
Today, plastic-covered baleage could be a thing of the past. A Southland farmers invented an eco-friendly alternative that stock can eat too. Cosmo headed to Southland to find out more.
And as it's golden shears time, we have a yarn with those organising the country's top shearing and wool handling competition. And in our feature story, I'm taking you to a small farm near Lake Rotorua to look at how small-scale farming might be a better way of producing food for the domestic market.
But first, we've got the monthly roundup of conditions on farms and orchards around the country. It's a tale of two halves in Northland Te Tai Tokerau, where some farms are still green and others are starting to dry out with little rainfall this past month. Things are ticking along though, and the mood among farmers seems good. That's likely due to good pregnancy scanning results for both beef and dairy cows, the result of a kind spring, and strong prices for cattle set to continue at the upcoming Weaner Fair sales. In Pukekohe, the weather has continued to be good for harvesting mature onions. Other crops have benefited from the low rainfall this summer, providing they've been irrigated.
Rainfall's been patchy across Waikato. Favoured farmers have had up to 70 millimetres, while others in parts of King Country in the Central Plateau have seen none. And they're having to feed out. Maize is just starting to be harvested. Pregnancy scanning results show most farms have an empty average of about 12%. Not a disastrous result, all things considered. Farmers are fairly positive, but they'll need to see some serious rain to get the autumn flush. Harvesting of red kiwi fruit is underway in Bay of Plenty. Vines are growing nicely in a good mix of rain and sunshine. A record 200 million trays of all varieties is expected this season. Growers have been relieved to see this hasn't impacted forecast prices too much. Packhouses and contractors have been busy signing people up, and many have wait lists.
It's a very different story in Taranaki, where drought has just been declared for what has been described as a 1 in 50-year event. A local vet says conditions on the ground are becoming extremely difficult, with limited feed and pasture available. In the south, near Hawera and Manaia, farmers are said to be facing desperate conditions. Many dairy farmers have dropped to once-a-day milking and are feeding out. The maize harvest is expected to start in March, though most crops could also do with a drink. Pregnancy scanning shows average empty rates of between 8 to 15%. Farmers are still in a good state of mind, though, and focused on the drought and managing animal welfare. The mood was positive at the recent Wairoa Farm Expo held in East Coast Te Tai Rāwhiti last week. Our agent contact says the wool price improvements are making farmers feel more hopeful. He says the region is still green, with good pasture cover and great stock conditions. Drier weather is helping stave off any facial eczema issues so far.
Hawke's Bay farmers are also happy with feed and rainfall levels, though the facial eczema risk there is increasing. Better prices have helped lift the mood. It's expected more farmers will be looking to spend on things like fertiliser or pay down debt. Early rams have gone out and cull dairy cows are hitting the works, which will help reduce a logjam later on. There's been an early start to the grape harvest, pickings underway for sparkling and other early varieties. Things are about a week ahead of last year, which was also early, and one winemaker jokes they'll soon be picking by Christmas. He says volume's good, and they're expecting to produce 32 million bottles this season. Pickings also started in Wairarapa for sparkling varieties, though a Martinborough winemaker thinks it'll be another week yet for some of the other early varieties. He says the quality and volumes coming off the vines are good, and there's no issues finding labour this year. Bales of hay in the summer sun make a great picture for the many tourists visiting the region.
It's been a typical summer for Manawatu-Rangatike farmers. The dry has not been a major concern for this time of year, though more rain would be welcome. Supplementary feeds going out, grain crops are looking good and starting to come off, as is maize. Growers in Horo Whenua are celebrating over some extra rain this week. It's only been about 15 millimetres, but everything helps after a period of strong winds which have dried things out very quickly. They're busy bringing in their later zucchini and have just started on watermelons. Cold temperatures earlier in the summer slowed growth. Growers are still struggling to get good returns with veggie prices so low. Compliance issues are also challenging for the industry.
Ki te Waipunamu and across Cook Strait to the Tasman region, and the hop harvest is about to get underway. Our contact at Tapawera says the weather's been mixed, more wind and cloud than usual, but as long as the plants are getting sufficient water and some added nutrients, hop production can be assured. He's aiming for a top quality crop for craft brewers here and overseas. The green shell mussel industry's been busy in the Marlborough Sounds. A mussel farmer says the current harvest cycle's been a cracker. International demand is strong, so they're making good returns. Rising costs are still a concern, though, but if the demand keeps up, he reckons growers will be able to reduce some of their debt.
Not far from the mussel farms, a sheep farmer at Waitui Bay says lamb weaning has gone well and singles have fetched better than expected prices. The Kenapuru Road is sufficiently repaired now to allow truck and trailer access to the farm. They had to barge stock on and off the property after the storm damage. A fencing project is also underway to protect a significant natural area of native kohi forest. Some grazing's been lost, but there's a spin-off. The fences will make mustering easier. The Marlborough District Council is helping to subsidise the costs, and the farmer says it's all worthwhile, as it'll keep the Sounds looking great for future generations. Many dairy farms on the west coast are on a once-a-day milking due to a dry summer and production levels are down on last year. It's been warm too. A Runanga dairy farmer says soil temperatures have reached 18 to 20 degrees. He grows ryegrass, and it tends to stop growing at these temperatures. There hasn't been a lot of baleage made, but winter crops are doing well thanks to a good dose of rain last week. Pregnancy testing's done and dusted. The rising 2-year-old or R2 heifers have higher empty rates than as older cows. They struggled to keep on condition during the wet spring.
Farmers in Canterbury Waitaha have been chipping away through harvest. Because the weather's not been ideal, many crops need to be dried, adding to the workload and cost to already strained farmers. This, coupled with lower pricing and rising costs, means morale among arable farmers isn't great. The farmer we spoke to at Horurata says he knows of many farmers who are investigating alternative options to farming. On the flip side, the cooler conditions are good for grass growth, so livestock farmers have plenty of feed and stock are doing well. Grape growers in central Otago have recovered well from an unexpected frost in late November, and since then there's been a lack of meaningful rain. Our contact at Bannockburn says some vines have collapsed due to a lack of moisture. Powdery mildew can thrive in warm and dry conditions, but it's been kept under control. And with little rainfall, botrytis hasn't been an issue. Veraison is the beginning of the ripening process when the grapes change colour, and from the look of things, intense flavours are expected from this year's vintage. Early picking begins in some vineyards next week for grapes destined for sparkling wine. Staff-wise, there are enough RSE workers and backpackers available for grape and cherry harvesting.
And lastly, there's been a mixed bag of weather in Murihiku, Southland. A farmer near Gore is hoping to get the peas off before the forecast rain arrives, but most of the wheat, barley and oat crops have been harvested. Trucks have been busy carting culled ewes and prime lambs and beef to the freezing works. Processing numbers are down a bit though. It's said to be due to less land being used for farming. Also, with reasonable meat prices, some farmers are holding on to stock until they get heavier.
This is Country Life on RNZ National 101 FM.
Visitors are flocking to Wairarapa this week for the annual Golden Shears competition. Now in its 63rd year, the Golden Shears is New Zealand's premier shearing, wool handling and pressing event. About 380 competitors are set to show off their wool skills at the competition, which started in Masterton on Thursday. Our producer Janina Schwanica spoke to Golden Shears president Trish Stevens ahead of the action.
The very first Golden Shears was in 1961, held in the stadium in Masterton. It just grew and grew and grew into where we are today.
And it's an international competition that attracts shearers from all around the world. Can you tell me a little bit about the competition side of things and the different heats that people compete in?
Anyone around the world can enter. This year we've got people from Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland, Mongolia that have entered. We've got novice shearing, junior, intermediate, senior and open shearing. We have the novice, junior, senior, open wool handling. We have wool pressing, which there's a women's grade, there's a men's single grade, and then there's a pairs grade that can be two women, a man and a lady, or it can be two men for the pressing. We have a speed shear on a Thursday night, which is free entry to the public, senior and open grades. And we also have a teddy bear shear where the littlies can, up under the age of 10, can shear a teddy bear. They're given a wooden handpiece.
And I suppose not everyone would realise that shearing is in fact a sport. A lot of people associate it as, something that happens on farms, something that's part of animal welfare and part of the process for getting in wool. But these are athletes, aren't they?
They're definitely athletes. It's a gruelling day for them to put out a sheep each time. It can be 8 hours, an 8-hour day, can be a 7-hour day, and it's non-stop for them. It's not only shearing, but it's also wool handling and pressing. You have to be very fit to do all three disciplines.
How many sheep are brought in to be shorn as part of the Golden Shears, and where do the sheep come from?
Over the 3 days and nights, we will probably shear over 3,500 sheep. We have merinos that come up from the South Island, and most of them, the rest are provided around the district here from local farmers.
How is this year's competition shaping up? What's the event to watch, do you think?
Most people coming to watch the shears that have either whānau in there or can be a friend of theirs. I don't think there's any one particular event. What will be one to watch will be the open, because at this stage it can be anybody's. There's so many different competitions around New Zealand that have had different winners. It's not been a particular person that's won that open grade. It has been varied winners, so that will be one that people will be, I think, very keen on seeing.
Do you have a favourite event yourself?
No, I actually like to watch all the events. There's no particular favourite. It's just who's going to win.
In recent years, we're starting to see possibly a little lift in hopes for the future of wool. Is that something that you feel is reflected, that the shears, people are talking about wool in a more positive way as well?
The wool has been a big part of absolutely the shearing industry. Of course, without it, there would be no shearers or wool handlers or pressers. And with the wee lift in the wool, there is a bit of light, I think. People are realising that wool is the better product to use for many things, including garments and your woolen bats. So hopefully the trend continues.
How many people do you think will attend this year's event? As you say, it goes from Thursday through to Saturday. How many people will flock to Masterton?
I think, Friday night is almost sold out. I think we only have 50 tickets available for spectators to watch Friday night. So I'm picking it's going to be another big event with maybe 3,500, 4,000 people coming through.
That was Golden Shears President Trish Stevens speaking to Janina Schwanecker ahead of the Golden Shears competition. Masterton's also set to host the World Shearing and Wool Handling Championships next year, which will see competitors from all over the world descend on the Wairarapa town.
Now we're heading to the bottom of the South Island with Cosmo Kentish Barnes. He's with farmer, inventor and rural entrepreneur Grant Lightfoot.
We're at Falls Creek Road up there at Oropuki on the south coast. And I can see Oropuki and Te Waiwai Lagoon and the Hump Ridge Track and the fjords.
And the beach down there is known as Gemstone Beach.
Yep, Gemstone Beach. There's a lot of tourists calling to there.
I saw actually there were quite a few camper vans parked up, and we can see the bush behind us.
Yeah,
Gorgeous.
Surrounded here by bush. It's nice up here, nice and quiet.
And you farm deer here?
Yeah, velveting stags. I've got a couple hundred velveting stags and hinds.
You are also a logger. You truck logs.
Yeah, I do logging as well. There's two of us. We cut down those big old man pines and old man macrocarpus, and I supply 2 sawmills down here in Southland.
Oh, so you cut the trees down as well as transporting the logs?
Yep, do everything and clean up the whole lot.
And before that, you were a commercial diver?
Yeah, worked on the oil rigs as a commercial diver for about 27 years.
Where did that take you?
All around the world. Yep, I've been around the world many times.
What would you do as a diver? What was your main kind of job?
Oil and gas, in the oil and gas fields, joining up pipelines, oil and gas pipelines. And the deepest I've been is 865 feet underwater, and lived at that depth for 28 days.
In a decompression chamber?
In a decompression chamber, yep. 2 days ago I just renewed my diving certificate, just in case, but hopefully that doesn't need to be happen.
Yeah. Now tell me what you are leaning on out here.
So I'm leaning on a new roll that I've invented, an eatable bale net, no more plastic, made out of jute yarn, like a flax fibre. Yeah.
So up until now, the netting that holds the feed bales together has been made out of plastic, but you've come up with an idea that is biodegradable and it's edible.
Eatable, yep. Any animal can eat it. That's right. So at the moment, the big round balers, as soon as it comes out of the baler, it's got to be wrapped. So they're wrapping it with this plastic net.
How much waste does that produce in New Zealand?
Oh, I hate to think, because that plastic net, you cannot recycle it. You can't do anything with it. Some farmers bury it, some burn it, yeah. It's a serious problem.
And we're talking about those big bales that most people have seen in paddocks, particularly over winter. Farmers tend to get them out there before it gets too wet.
Yep.
And how and why did you come up with this original idea?
So it was going back a wee bit, back in the chambers when I was sitting in there, you spend a lot of time in the decompression chamber and just sitting in there and thinking, and I was originally going to do it with hemp, but I went to America and talked to some people over there, and the THC still into that. So for me, if I ever wanted to export to America, it was a no-no. So I've gone to something else, and now I've come up with a new product, jute fibre.
Now, what have you called this netting?
Kiwi Eco Net. Yep.
That pretty much sums it up.
It is.
And tell me about the jute.
So the jute in Sri Lanka and India, where it's grown, it's like a bamboo plant. They grow it in the fields, and then they cut it off, and then they soak it, and then they beat it, and then the bark on the outside is the jute.
So when you came up with the idea, how did you make the first batch of netting?
So we first started was me and my partner. We made hand knitted 50 metres of net. It started off all right, doing about 1 metre or 2 at night, and then the novelty wore off, as you can tell. And then it went on for about 8 to 10 months, and then we got done about 50 metres, and then we took it out the back and put it in the baler, and we put it through the first bale, and it held it together. It was amazing. It went through, a piece of cake. And I thought, wow, we're onto something here. The old goose pump started. And so after that, I took one of those rolls that I made from that to the Waimumu Field Days, and I won the awards there. And after I won the awards there was a guy from America rung me up.
And you're talking about the Farm Innovation Award.
Yep.
That's a really important award that garners a lot of attention.
Yeah. So they rang me up and said, I got a guy interested in what I've just done. And now we're business partners. And Jackie, he's an Indian living in America. And the other guy is Russ, he's an ex-Kiwi living in Oklahoma. And with Jackie being an Indian, it's been helpful for where I get it made.
Once you'd made the prototype and you realised it was going to work in a baler, how did you get to the next stage?
So when I got some products, some samples sent over from India back to here, and I thought, well, I've done it through my baler, which is a Welger. So then I thought, well, I needed to try and find some other ones. So there's a local contractor in Otago, Eddie Rabbit, and we put it through his balers, and Eddie's got a Fusion over there, and it went through amazing through there. And the farmer who we done it on his property, he was amazed as well. So, and then we went back there a wee while ago, and after winter when he fed it out to his deer, and he says, yeah, he'll have it again as soon as I can get it.
So the animals were eating the bales and the netting.
Yep. And one of the cows that I did have a cow back here, and it was for the freezer anyway. So I made that cow eat that whole bale of baleage in my deer shed. So I made sure it was going to eat the whole lot. It was winter time anyway, so there's no grass around.
Yeah.
And then put it back out in the paddock just to finish it off. And then I dissected the guts and that, and there was absolutely no trace of my product.
Because some farmers have had issues in the past with plastic netting, haven't they, in terms of animal health?
Yeah, it's just when farmers don't pick it up, those cows get bored overnight and they start picking up plastic. And I've got vet photos of plastic that there's some of the balls inside the cow's guts is as big as a basketball, and they can't digest it, so they end up dying.
Yes, feeling the netting now, it's rather like twine.
Yep, like the old days.
But a bit thinner.
Yeah.
And each square is, what about 40 by 40 mils?
Yep, that'd be about it. And 1250 wide by 525 metres. And the other roll was 775 metres.
And how does that compare to a roll of plastic netting?
The plastic rolls are about 3,600 metres. But it's just with my product and what I've got, I can't get any more because I can't go any more than 300 diameter for some balers.
Yes.
So that's just what it is, but,
Yeah. And it's wrapped around a tube.
Cardboard.
Or a cardboard tube, which goes directly onto a fitting in the baler.
Yep.
So you just slide it on,
Just put it straight in,
close the door.
and away you go. That's it. Yep.
And how strong does it need to be?
It's just as strong as plastic. Yep. It's just like hemp, just pretty much.
Because it is quite tight over the bale, isn't
Yeah.
it?
And it doesn't give. So yeah, when it comes out of the baler, it leaves a really nice bale. And so baleage is wrapped with that plastic on the outside. But hay, you got to go and put it in the hay shed straight away. You can't leave it lying around.
Yep. And so while you were doing all the testing, were you also talking to a manufacturer?
Meanwhile, I've been doing this. Yes. Yep. And Jackie, my partner, he's been helping me with it over in India.
Have you been over there?
Yeah, I've been there quite a few times. One of the factories there's over 10,000 people working in one factory. It's amazing.
Where your netting is being made?
Yep, Calcutta.
So you've got an agreement with a big manufacturing company over there. Is the Indian government behind this venture?
Yep, we've had meetings, and I've had meetings with the Indian government over there, and they're backing us 100%.
And you said earlier that you were unable to secure any R&D funding from New Zealand.
No, I tried, many places, and it's just too many loopholes to get to the right person.
So did you approach Callaghan Innovation?
I did go to Callaghan's, but no one was interested in me. So then, once when I got Jackie and them on board, I thought, well, I've gone offshore now. Nothing in New Zealand now.
Well, it's their loss.
It is, exactly.
That must have been quite frustrating, to say the least.
Yep. And the money I've had to spend to get where I am, but hopefully it's going to pay off.
Yes, and you're still having to drive a logging truck to keep things ticking over.
Yep. I've got about 5 jobs at the moment, so I've still got to keep doing that, but like I said, it's going to pay off.
What potential has this netting got in terms of global sales?
Well, it's endless. I can't imagine what it's going to happen this time in the next couple of years.
Are you talking millions of dollars?
Millions and millions of dollars, hopefully.
Because no one else is doing it.
No one else in the world. Little old Grant from Arapuki.
And what do local farmers think about this?
They can't wait. Like the contractors, I got people knocking on my door. I got a book there full of orders already, but I just want to get it here first.
How much is it going to cost now for a roll? What's it going to cost?
For this roll here, the 525 metres is $220 plus GST. And the 775 metres is $320 plus GST.
And how many bales will this roll here wrap?
This one here, 525 metres, will wrap 50 bales.
50 bales, so that's $4 or $5 a bale.
Yep.
So this might cost a bit more for farmers, but it sounds like this isn't an issue.
No, they hate the net. they hate it with a passion.
Why?
Because you can't get it off in the paddock. If you're in a Swede paddock or a chow paddock, you're trying to take that off, and it's just. And then sometimes there's a little piece on the bottom that they can't get off. Like some farmers, the workers and that, they don't bother picking it up. And another bonus thing is you can do a week's taking off the plastic on the outside, and with mine you can leave my stuff on, and the bale's still nice to put the ring feeder over.
Mm. And as well as the United States, are you targeting Europe?
I'm looking at going over there in about the 10th of May to promote it, and then do a couple of weeks in Europe, and then go to America for a week or two to see some big ranches over there, and then home. And then I'll go back again in June to the big shows. I've been invited to the big shows over there, the Highlander shows, and I've got 2 shipping containers coming on the 15th of this month, which I want to try and sell throughout New Zealand and just get the end of the season here. So it's actually quite good, because this will be 365 days of the year. So when it's not this season here, it'll be a season somewhere else around the world. Yeah. So they're always going to be making baleage 365 days of the year.
Kiwi EcoNet inventor Grant Lightfoot talking to Cosmo at his Orepuki farm in Southland. To see some photos of Grant and his edible bale netting, go to rnz.co.nz/countrylife.
Hi, I'm Gloria Harris from Bushhaven Owl Rescue in Invercargill, and you're listening to Country Life.
I'm taking you now to a small farm on the northeastern side of Lake Rotorua in early spring to meet Alison Bentley, who's moving her small herd of beef cattle to a fresh slice of paddock. We've got some friends with us too, haven't we?
We have. We've got Willow here. Willow is a Springer Spaniel, and Aria, come on, is a rehome dog, so her history is a little bit unknown, but she's a really good pointer. Mm-hmm. It's taken a wee while to earn her trust with us, but now she's in our family. She's one of the crew. So we're on Tikateri, Rotorua. We're on a little 7-hectare farm. We've been here for 11 or 12 years now. We farm here because it's north facing. It's got a lovely gradient to it. It had everything we were looking for really in a property. Mm-hmm. Loads of potential. It was a little rundown when we came here. Almost every fence line had big old pine trees on it, which was really hard on the farming ground. And so we set about taking all those out.
That would have been a hard job.
It was huge. It was a mission. By the end of it, we had 27 piles of slash on our little 7 hectares. Uh-huh. But we managed to sell quite a bit of timber out of that. So with the return from that, we put in a solar panel system. And so the solar panels run the power for the farm and the house and the water bore. But of course, being grid tied, we rely on the grid for after dark.
Speaking of dark, we're in the dark. Well, the sun's just about to come up. Why are we up so early?
It's the best time of the day. It's absolutely the best time of the day. It's also the time of the day now that I need to do most of the farm work. Working off farm now, but just listen for a moment. There's all sorts of bird life happening here, waking up at this time of the morning, and I just love being out here.
Farming on a small scale is something Alison studied as well as put into practice. It was the topic of her research with the Kellogg Rural Leadership Program. What is the potential for small-scale farmers to help New Zealand's domestic food security, she asked, while at the same time benefiting the environment and the community. Her farm is a kind of test case for her studies.
We are in an area with lifestyle blocks, but they are really productive lifestyle blocks, which is super cool to see. They all produce food of some description. So here on Tikateri Farm, I'm producing beef and hazelnuts. And just adjacent to us, we've got a truffery And over on the other boundary, we've got a Feijoa orchard, and I think they still do passion fruit. And then up the road is the beautiful old orchard that Carl and Cherry Dibley owned for 60-something years, and that's an apple orchard.
And there they are, the beautiful cows.
Yes. These ones are Belgian Blue Cross.
The Belgian Blues, what are they famous for?
Their meat. So a true Belgian Blue is a double muscling cow. And so the theory, I guess, is more meat for the size of the animal. But they're also known as good calvers. So I buy in 100-kilo weaners. So I bought these ones in last November, and they're sitting now around 350-kilo live weight. And so my objective is always to move them on at around 420 kilos just around Christmas time. And I watch the market and watch the rate of the cows and watch the season and whip them out at the best time.
And how's it looking?
It's looking really good, actually.
Is it?
They're doing really, really well. When they get up and we move them in a minute, you'll see that they've got beautiful form, they've got beautiful straight backs, and they're well covered with beautiful tight round tummies.
And just to look at, just tell the listeners a little bit about their markings, because they're quite unusual.
Oh, they're gorgeous. They're absolutely gorgeous. And anybody that comes to visit wants to go and cuddle them because they really are sweet. They're all different. Their markings are not consistent. They're mainly white, and they've got kind of that bluish grey colouring going through them. The cow closest to us here, she almost looks more like a white-faced Hereford, in that she's got a distinctive white face. But then the rest of her hide is more that grey, blue.
Cows have just moved into a fresh lot of grass.
The grass is really long. It's partly the good spring we're having, but it's also because that I farm regeneratively, which means that I've got a huge amount of mixed species in here, so it's not really just grass, it's a full suite of nourishment for the cows. And I try and graze a third, and a third, particularly at this time of the year.
So what does that mean?
That's when you put the cows in on a calculated sized break, and they eat a third, they trample a third, and they leave a third. And that helps build carbon and organic matter in the soil.
How many cows have you got?
I've got 10, but size doesn't count really. I'm still a farmer. The reason I've got 10 is because I'm farming to the Rotorua Lakes catchment Plan Change 10 rules, and as a lifestyle block I've got a stocking rate table that I need to adhere to, and that is because of the nutrients in the lake that really needed addressing. So the Regional Council have taken responsibility to stop a whole lot of nitrogen and phosphorus to a certain extent entering our waterways.
So this is all done before you head off to work, Alison.
Yeah, but hey, isn't that the case with most people on small blocks?
When it comes to butchering the cows, Alison ensures the shortest road possible between paddock and plate.
I only send 2 heifers away at a time, and they go to a micro abattoir in the Waikato and get butchered and packed, and then I pick the packed meat up and bring it back here and label it and sell it from here. I've got an order page on my website, but I only sell within Rotorua because that's part of the Food Miles mission that I'm trying to, keep down and keep reasonable. And because I don't have continuous supply, there's been all sorts of challenges. I'm a farmer, not a marketer.
We're going to talk more about your passion for short supply chains.
Yes.
Local food a bit later on.
Yes, that's great.
What happens next?
I'll take you up to my wee subtropical corner on the loop around the farm, and then back to the farmhouse to get the bread out of the oven and chat some more.
This is the morning walk for those dogs.
Oh, absolutely, yes. And she's feeling a bit fenced in because I didn't open the other gate for the paddock while I was moving the cows.
So they've got their routine as well.
Yeah, they have.
So is it just you on the farm, Alison?
Mainly me on the farm. My husband is an industrial electrician, site manager, and so he works long hours as well. He leaves normally about 5:15 in the morning and gets home around 5:30 at night. He introduced himself not long ago as my helper. He helps out with all the infrastructure stuff and that sort of thing. But certainly it's me doing the farm animals and doing the food production and that sort of thing. Yeah, absolutely.
And what's your day job nowadays?
Nowadays my day job is working for the kiwi fruit breeding centre. I started off my life on a kiwi fruit orchard, and then for 16 years being completely submerged in that, and then took a break for probably 30 years. We'll go over to that corner over there.
The farm is interesting because it's dells and slopes and it's kind of rolling, isn't it?
It is rolling. It's
really
gentle,
quite pretty and pastoral.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. It's pretty, because when I left home and left the kiwi fruit, I actually trained in amenity horticulture, which is your kind of basic landscape design stuff. And it's something I try and bring to the farm here when I'm doing my plantings.
Yes, because you've got trees in the middle of paddocks, obviously protected from the stock.
Yep.
Is that for shade purposes?
Absolutely, absolutely. And for the last couple of years I've been watching the sun in the midsummer and watching where the existing vegetation is and where there's gaps, and watching where I typically break through the paddocks with the cows' rotations. So I've definitely set about planting trees specifically for shade in the summer. Trees on farms is the best thing ever, for all sorts of reasons, for the whole ecosystem really, and as well as the shade for the animals.
And you've got your block up here of the subtropicals.
Yes.
That's where we're heading to now.
This is where we're heading to. So this is a wee corner that once again I watched for a few years, and I watched the frost line in the paddock, and when I was fairly sure that it was a consistent point in the paddock, I put the fence on the frost line. So
wow, that's precise.
Well, it's all about microclimates and ecosystems and things like that. So I love growing a whole variety of food, and I love testing things out. Can we do this? Is this going to work? How can this work?
On the sheltered north-facing slope, Alison's growing tamarillos, 4 types of macadamias, avocados, citrus, and even a banana palm, figs and olives. Some may produce, and some are just for the chop and drop system she's developing, where plant and tree prunings are left in place to decompose and enrich the soil.
Is this all for eating at home, or are you selling it? Or
At the moment it's for eating at home, but once again it's proof of concept. I like to try different sorts of things that haven't really worked before, so I like to work out how to do them well before I scale up.
So we're just heading to the house to get the bread out of the oven. Is this something you do every day?
Not every day, absolutely not every day, but I do it probably 2 or 3 times a week for sure. You can smell it from here. Beautiful. I'll just give it a tap. Yep, that's cooked. Nice and brown all around. Sounds hollow. Fantastic.
Beautiful, Alison. Wow.
It's a little bit too hot. Normally I'd let it rest for a wee
but it's
bit
nothing
longer.
like warm, fresh bread from the oven. What a treat. Alison, you started off as a scuba diver. Has the scuba diving helped with the farming at all?
Yeah, actually, funny you ask. It's a really, yes it has, but it's only been in hindsight that I've realised the input that phase of my life has had, and that all I knew about farming and horticulture as a youngster was pretty much monoculture as New Zealand farming, But the scuba diving really brought in a whole ecosystem context to me. And, when you're submerged in the water and you're really in this 3-dimensional kind of state, you're looking at life in a different way. I now look at the farm in a whole ecosystem way. So I look at the farm from well under the soil and what's going on in the soil ecosystem, to the surface, and then to the plants and things that are above the surface.
Now, are these eggs from your farm?
Absolutely. Right, 2, 4, 6, 7. Let's do another couple. Why not?
So you're almost self-sufficient here. You've got your own beef, your eggs, vegetables.
My vegetable garden waxes and wanes depending on the phase of life and the business and stuff. But yeah, self-sufficiency is a really interesting topic in itself, isn't it? So while I dream to be self-sufficient, the reality for me is that's not going to happen. So let's do the best I can with the resources and the energy that we've got. There you go, we lost the hand.
Thank you. Lovely.
One thing that I came across when I did my Kellogg Rural Leadership Program was we had the opportunity to do an in-depth research project, and I chose small-scale food growers and their contribution to New Zealand's food system and food sustainability into the future. And during that really in-depth focused research, I found that the urban development planning specifically plans food out of urban development, keep the food out growing on the farms and transport it into urban people. Now, with greenhouse gases and everything about that is so wrong as we go into the future, we need to shorten our supply chains for a whole raft of reasons. So one of the things that could make a huge difference would be to design food into our urban areas. It's called the peri-urban space, and it's a way of kind of bridging the gap between and definitely shortening the supply chains.
Would you like to see farms like Tikatere Farm all around big centres in New Zealand?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's 148,000 hectares of lifestyle farms in New Zealand, and lifestyle blocks are viewed by farmers as a waste of land, and you can understand that when their lens is large scale, and by the urban developers, they're seen as land in waiting. Now, out of that 148,000 hectares, according to research and information I found while I was doing my Kellogg project, was about 10% of lifestyle block owners have a genuine intent to produce food from their land.
Alison says small-scale, diverse food-growing systems like hers have a crucial place in New Zealand to address domestic food security and underpin the export economy. But more research and investment is needed, and help cutting through challenges around compliance and land availability.
It's very, very difficult to make a living off a lifestyle block in New Zealand because all our infrastructure is focused around large-scale export. It's pushing shit uphill, actually, to be frank, and we're on a farming program, so I'll use that phrase, to make headway, to make a living off a small block. Now, the other thing that I really learnt through that Kellogg experience was the importance of New Zealand as a food-producing nation with our food exports. We really need that to be fiscally stable and to be able to trade in the world market. But our domestic food system has really, really got drowned in the wake of that. We've got food deprivation and food insecurity in New Zealand like not many people would understand. So we really need to view our domestic food through a completely different lens.
So what do you do?
Yeah, so there needs to be two different systems. So one of the ways that we can really make big advancements in this is designing food into our urban development and really utilising peri-urban spaces. And those spaces are particularly appropriate, according to the research, for small-scale food growers. And you can produce an awful amount of food, not an awful, a magnificent amount of food from a very small area. The ecosystem and the diversity can produce more food from a smaller footprint than large-scale, heavy machinery, high-input type of systems.
Charged up by breakfast, Alison's work on the farm hasn't finished yet.
I've got my kneeler pad.
Most important.
Most important. I've got my secateurs and I've got my knee washi. Now, this is the most magic tool every gardener should have. I've also got my gloves because a knee washi is a curved blade with a serrated inner edge. My job this morning is to clear the weeds and the suckers away kind of simultaneously in the same job.
Alison's weeding and chopping the suckers or canes popping out of the base of the hazelnut trees, which he's been growing as part of a 7-year trial.
Another project of yours.
Another project, and an environmentally focused one as well. So this has come about because of the Lake Rotorua catchment and their water quality issues, and so Regional Council were looking around to trial different land uses which took animals off the land. The trees are now out of trial.
And how did it go? Was it a success?
It was an absolute success, yeah. There was lots of questions that have been answered and more questions that have been raised, as in any research, there's always more questions. They just haven't been grown in this region before, so we needed to prove whether they could, but it's not only about the growing of and the survival of, it's about the production.
And how is the production?
The production is typical of New Zealand hazelnut production, which is a marginal land use. Overseas, statistics suggest that it should return a much better income than sheep and beef, but at the moment in New Zealand it's not. So part of this trial here was to compare two different varieties of cultivar against the normal white height cultivar that is New Zealand's commercial variety. So we trialled Jefferson and Tonda Romano alongside White Heart. Definitely there's potential, definitely there's room for more R&D. The total yield is not quite getting us over the mark to be a profitable land use. However, there's specific areas of identification where a little bit more research can go into improving that yield significantly.
So do you think you'll plant more? And
I would love to grow more hazelnuts. I would grow them differently than what this trial was set up, because this trial was set up according to industry standard, and industry standard is a large-scale monocrop. And I believe that there is a place for that, but I also believe that there's a place for ecosystem farming.
so do you plant something extra in here?
Absolutely, I would.
What would you
Absolutely.
plant in between?
The interrows I would plant with annual cropping, annual vegetable cropping, and in Rotorua in particular, it would be very suitable for kumaras, pumpkins, garlic. So once again, there's a diversity of what can be grown. If we could crack the yield issue and improve our yields, then there's 150 tonne of hazelnuts to be consumed in New Zealand that we're importing currently. So to displace that import is a fantastic starting point to grow an industry from. The potential's there, it's calculatable.
Farmer and Kellogg scholar Alison Bentley of Tikiteri Farm near Lake Rotorua. Now, lots happened since I visited in the spring. For a start, the fresh beef meat business has come to a natural end. But Alison says not without some valuable insights which fit very well with her research. She's concluded it is extremely difficult to maintain a profitable, small-scale, independent primary industry business without extra assistance, without burnout. while paying all the overheads involved and prioritising the environment. She says collaboration and diversified cooperative frameworks would be more sustainable options for small growers wanting to serve local communities. Alison's been busy processing summer fruit, and the hazelnut harvest is underway, with nut quality and quantity looking good. There's still kumara, feijoas and tamarillos to come.
And that's this week's Country Life. Thanks for joining us. You can find photos and more information about the stories in this episode in our show notes. Now, we do love getting your feedback and ideas for future stories. You can reach us at country@rnz.co.nz.
And we'd hate for you to miss an episode of Country Life. To get every episode free to your phone, click follow on your app now. And if you enjoyed our show, give us a shout out on social media or tell a friend by clicking the share button in this app.
Out in the field today were Cosmo Kentish-Barnes and Janina Schwanneker.
And me, Sally Round. The show was produced and engineered by David Knowles and Phil Bench. Ka kite.
Catch you next time.